إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending immense greetings and salutations upon the final Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, we find that unfortunately many of us Muslims, especially living inside the West, that we find a negligence in trying to prepare ourselves. And not just preparing ourselves for the dunya, but preparing ourselves for al-akhirah. And you find that many cliches are mentioned that to fail to plan is to plan to fail. Not everything that non-Muslims that they speak about is false or kufr. Because that's an extremity in some of us Muslims, that we feel that everything that they say is wrong inside their lives. You know, at times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even praises the non-Muslims. Allah mentions in Surah Rum, the 30th chapter of the Quran, يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. They know everything about this external world. They are daqiq, they're accurate in everything they plan about this world. Roads, streets, maps, in the ocean, in space, different planets, different locations, whatever it may be, they plan, they make the takhteet, they eventually get what they want to achieve. لأن هذه سنة الله سبحانه وتعالى وليس للإنسان إلا ما سعى. Man will only have whatever he strives for. So Allah gives them these things of the dunya, but then Allah then defames them. يعلمون ظاهرا من الحياة الدنيا وهم عن الآخرة هم غافلون. That's where the Quran strikes the balance. They know everything about this world, ولكن من أمور الأخروية والآخرة, affairs of the unseen, غافلون, they're heedless. They don't have a clue about the hereafter or preparation for the hereafter. And that's for some of us Muslims, especially living here, that whilst we live amongst these people, certain traits and characteristics begin to build into our lives. Even the akhirah for many of us becomes something distant, something far away. That at a later stage in my life, I will plan for al-akhirah, to returning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this mantiq, this logic, the Quran speaks about it. When the brethren of Yusuf alayhi salam, when they wanted to either to place him inside the well or to kill him, what did they say? They said, وَتَكُونُ مِن بَعْدِهِ قَوْمًا صَالِحِينَ. We're going to do what we're going to do, then afterwards we become righteous people. This is the same logic of many of us Muslims today. That at a later stage inside my life, I will become a pious individual. I'll become a righteous individual. So the planning for the hereafter, it just drifts further and further away from us. Because we don't have that belief, that conviction, that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins the whole Quran with. Allah begins the Quran by mentioning الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Those who believe in the unseen. Why does the Quran begin with such wordings? Because al-akhirah is the unseen. There's only certain bushra, certain glad tidings of the world are going to be given to the human being, min bab at-targhib, to encourage the individual. But most of the blessings are inside al-akhirah, inside the hereafter, which may be distant, but in reality is very, very close for all of us. But because we don't have that yaqeen, that certainty, we let it drift it away. And as we find that even the building of Ramadan, that we find what the main theme of today is preparing for Ramadan. But before that, what has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared for people who disbelieve and people who disbelieve? Right in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah mentions that fire, فَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ أُعِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ. Fear that fire whose fuel is men and stones, أُعِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ. That's what we're going to focus upon, those verbs, those words that come inside the Quran about preparation. Hellfire which has been prepared for the disbelieving individuals. إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَدَّ لِلْكَافِرِينَ عَذَابًا مُهِينًا. Inside Surah An-Nisa, Allah mentioned Allah has prepared for the disbelieving individuals a terrible chastisement, a terrible punishment has been prepared for them. And likewise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in another place inside the Quran, inside Surah Al-Imran, Allah mentions about these individuals, وَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي أُعِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ. Fear that fire which has been prepared, ignited, lying in waiting for those disbelievers, for people disbelieving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the opposite, Allah mentions inside the same surah, inside Surah Al-Imran, وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. Race with one another in gaining the forgiveness of your Lord. And paradise whose width is like the heavens and the earth. أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. On this occasion, prepared for whom? For the believing individuals. Another similar verse inside Surah Al-Hadid. Instead of وَسَارِعُوا, Allah mentioned سَابِقُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. Look at the language of the Quran, how it encourages us. وَسَارِعُوا وَسَابِقُوا فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا هَلْ أَدُلُّكُمْ عَلَى تِجَارَةٍ تُنْجِيكُمْ مِنْ عَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. Look at the language of the Quran. Al-bay', al-shira, buying, selling, commodities, a deal, a transaction, a reward, a contract. لأن هذا لغة الناس, لغة العوام الناس, language of the people. That's what we like to hear. If I do this, what am I given in return? So Allah uses the language. إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Allah has purchased from the believers. Allah doesn't need anything from the believers. وَلَكِنْ مِنْ بَابِ التَّرْغِيبِ. Purchase from the believers if you give your soul, your life, your wealth. بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. Allah in return will give you paradise. Who's more truthful in the speech, in the promise, is none other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah never fails His promise. We fail the promise. We fail outside of the covenant of the promise. We fail it. وَمَنْ أَصْدَقُ مِنَ اللَّهِ حَدِيثًا. Who's more truthful in speech than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So this encouragement here in Surah Al-Hadith, Allah mentioned, عِدَّةِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرُسُلِهِ. This paradise has been prepared for us individuals who believe in Allah and His Messenger. In a hadith Qudsi that we find, speaking about the preparation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أَعْدَدْتُ لِعِبَادِي الصَّالِحِينَ مَا لَا عَيْنٌ رَأَتْ وَلَا عُذُنٌ سَمِعَتْ وَلَا خَطَرَ عَلَى قَلْبِ بَشَرٍ. I prepared for my servants what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and that feeling, that perception, that thought hasn't come across the heart or the mind of any individual. فَلَا تَعْلَمُ نَفْسٌ مَا أُخْفِيَ لَهُ مِنْ قُرَّةِ أَعْيُنٍ جَزَاءً بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. I prepared for my servants what no eye has ever seen. They will delight, rejoice. But look how the ayah ends. جَزَاءً بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. Recompense, reward because of the actions they used to do. It's a point of deviancy and corruption which is spreading amongst us Muslims, that we don't need to live a life of action. Allah is Ghafoor Rahim. Allah forgives and He pardons. So whatever I do inside my life, He will overlook it. But look at all the rewards inside paradise, or the rewards that Allah mentions inside the Quran. Allah always couples it with doing righteous actions. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Those who believe. Belief isn't just inside our hearts. People always make this statement, Allah knows I believe. Of course Allah knows that you believe. My Islam is inside my heart. My prayer is inside my heart. My hijab is in my heart. Everything is inside my heart. Allah knows. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقْ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Does not Allah know what He has created? He's the most subtle, the most aware. Are you trying to play God? That Allah knows what's inside my heart. So these actions that you may do on face value, Allah will judge me with a different rule and a different regulation. Sunnat Allah fi as-sama'i wa 'ala al-ardi. Sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is constant in the heavens and the earth that He lays out. There may be a few exceptions for those people who may be overlooked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but that's not the common rule. Every individual needs to make their own effort. وَكُلُّمْ آتِهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَرْدًا. Every individual will come on the day of judgment on their own. When all of us we leave this dunya, three things travel with each and every single one of us. Two of them they return, and one remains with us. What are these three actions that travel with the individual? Ahluhu wa maluhu wa amaluhu. Person's wealth, their family, and his actions. Two of them they return back. فَيَبْقَ وَاحِدٌ. Only one remains for the person. Your family walks away, your wealth walks away. The only thing that remains with every single one of us, amaluhu, his actions. That's the only thing that remains. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to make the accountability. That's the final day. That's what Allah mentioned inside Surah Al-Baqarah, what Imam Suyuti inside Al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Quran mentions, classified as the final verse of the Quran. What is the final verse that's sent down inside the Quran? Inside Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 281. وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا تُرْجَعُونَ فِيهِ إِلَى اللَّهِ ثُمَّ تُوَفَّى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. وَاتَّقُوا. Fear that day you're going to return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the strange thing about this ayah, you read the siyaq, the context of this ayah. Before it speaks about what? About riba. About monetary gains and transactions. Straight after it, Allah mentions what? Ayatul Dain. The longest ayah inside the Quran that takes a whole page. But this is manhajul Quran. That even while it's speaking about the world and this dunya, the key eye, the eye of the believer is fain. Ay makan. The eye of the believer, even in transactions inside this dunya, is what? Is وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا تُرْجَعُونَ فِيهِ إِلَى اللَّهِ. Fear that day whereby you're going to return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this preparation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is made for even paradise. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned on the first night of paradise, or the first night of Ramadan, فُتِّحَتْ أَبْوَابُ الْجَنَّةِ. And it doesn't say futihat, it's just open. Futihat min bab al-sighatul mubalagha. Bitashdid. That the doors are not just open slowly and gradually. Futihat, they're swung open. They're swung open totally. And the doors of Jahannam are locked. And the chains are locked. The shayateen, the devils are chained up. So this is the first night of Ramadan. This is the preparation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tasawwaru hadha. We try to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared for us and what our approach would be towards Ramadan. Look at the encouragement from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that all the doors are swung open. And likewise we find other numerous ahadith that we find when it's the first night of Ramadan, the hadith in Sunan Imam Tirmidhi, that caller calls out, "O seeker of good, come to that goodness. O seeker of evil, refrain yourself." And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala frees people from the hellfire every single night. Every single night He frees people from the hellfire. Likewise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the hadith Qudsi, that a sawm, that fasting is for me, and I will reward that individual. All the actions of the son of Adam are for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But why specifically does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention that fasting is for me, I will reward the individual? When we know, all of us, قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين. The end of Surah Al-An'am, the 6th chapter of Quran. Another name is Surah Al-Tawheed. From the beginning to the end. Say my prayer, my sacrifice is all dedicated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So why fasting? Why is fasting being said that it is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Ulama give various descriptive natures or deciphering this hadith. Because when you pray, people visualize you praying. When you perform Hajj, people visualize you performing Hajj. You give zakah, people know you're giving zakah. So all of these actions, external actions, they're visualized. Amma siyam, as-sawm. No one knows that you're really fasting illallah. No one knows that. May Allah forbid you could secretly eat and drink and do whatever you want to do. So that's why the reward lies with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knows that you have abandoned everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reward is multiplied 10 times over. Some ulama are going to review, or 70 times over. Some even say 700 times over. Some say it's continuous. That the reward that's given to the fasting individual. What else has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared for the believing individual? In another hadith we find that the person who fasts, if we can use these words linguistically, the foul smell, the natural odor that comes out the mouth of the individual when they're fasting, is more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the smell of musk. You know, sometimes we find that people worry what non-Muslims say. We want to hide that we're fasting. We don't want to show them that we're fasting. We're worried about what people may say. But remember, what will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? How does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala see this individual? How do the angels see this individual? That the person, this is the reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is preparing for these individuals who want to come close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise, we find that our preparation, let us now look at our preparation inside our lives towards this blessed month of Ramadan. Obviously, Muslim countries, alhamdulillah, have a lot of reminders about Ramadan and build up because it's a Muslim country. That's why there's a clear difference between this world that we live in and the world that they live in. Yes, there's challenges that they face, but in general, they don't have that much of a struggle about Ramadan that we may face or in preparing ourselves. And the Quran mentions, وَعِدُّ لَهُ مَسْتَطَعْتُ مِنْ قُوَّةٍ. You know, where the Quran is simple. It's quite simple language. وَعِدُّ لَهُ مَسْتَطَعْتُ مِنْ قُوَّةٍ. Be prepared in everything. If you're not prepared for warfare, you can't be prepared for anything in your lives. You know, we have to be Muslims strong in every single faculty. That's what we lack inside our lives. It's either we go to a dimension, we need to be economically strong. We need to have huge buildings. Show the kuffar the buildings that we build. They build a 50-story building, we build 60-story. They build 70, we build this. They build it in the land, we build it in the ocean. To show them. As if that's our cost in our life. To show people that this is the real purpose of our life. This is a form of da'wah. That's what people try to say. This shows them. Have you not seen the nations that existed before, what they built before, and Allah destroyed them? Do you think that's a symbol of civilization? That's not a symbol of civilization. It's morality. A symbol of civilization is a moral society based upon belief, based upon right practices. So we find it also spiritually. Some people just go into spiritual dimension. That's what it is. We need to be spiritually sound. We need to equip ourselves mentally strong, physically strong, spiritually strong. That's what a Muslim is. The strong Muslim is better than the weak Muslim. And in both of them there is goodness. The upper hand is better than the lower hand. That's what a Muslim society is. It's a strong society. It's a powerful society. It's a powerful force. What disciplines a man? Shall I tell you what disciplines a man? Is the Quran. The Quran made men throughout centuries. Read through the companions, what it made of these human beings. That history writes the worst of people becomes what? كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. You become the best people. Whoever existed on the face of this earth, you order the good and you forbid the evil. That's what the Quran does. That's what Islam does. It doesn't make you a passive, soft, humble individual. As Christianity says that if they slap you on one side, then offer your other side of your cheek to them to let them slap you, to walk all over you. That's not what Islam is. Why should we shy away from the fact of things that we believe in? أَفِلَّهِ شَقٌّ فَاطِرِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Is there doubt in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He tells us to do inside our lives? But as we began with, because our iman is weak, so we question, as human beings, we question ourselves, well, maybe there are certain things that are not compatible in the world that we live in at the moment. So it's best to become a passive type of individual inside our lives. So ill-prepared in everything that we find inside our lives, unfortunately. Even before the sighting of the crescent that we find, the Prophet, he prayed, oh Allah, give us this month to be, when he saw the crescent, to be month of bil-amni, of peace and security inside our lives, of blessing. And we're fighting amongst ourselves. Fighting even about the fiqh, about prayers that we find. Whatever masjid that you follow, whether they're praying 8 rak'at or 20 rak'at, just pray behind the a'immah. You know, we become so full of ourselves. That's what we become, so full of zeal and passion. Because we have qillatul ilm. This debate has been going on for, you know how long? More than 1,000 years. More than 1,000 years. So don't become so full of yourself to walk in and to say, well, this needs to be just changed automatically. Sometimes we forget the spirit of Islam. We're so fidgeting inside salah to make sure the next person is straight, their legs are straight, their head is straight, their neck is straight, they're standing close by. You've missed the spirit of salah. What is the spirit of salah? Al-khushu fi salah. You've just been busy moving about, adjusting yourself, adjusting everybody around you. You lost the spirituality of salah. And that's what it is for many of us Muslims. That there's tertiary things that we read inside our lives and we try to apply them inside our society. How many of us are beginning to read the Quran now before Ramadan? How many of us, whether you pray 8 or 20, you stand behind the Imam. The intention should be what? To complete listening to the Quran. Not to, if you want to read 8, وَإِنْ كَانَ هَذَا قَوْلُ الرَّاجِحِ عِنْدَنَا, that we read 8 is a view that many of us that we follow. If you read 8 and you walk out, then walk out quietly. Why are you disturbing the rest of the masjid? Why are you disturbing the people who want to read 20 rak'at? Why is it every year it has to be some argumentation taking place inside the masjid? You don't agree with 20, then quietly leave. Quietly go and read your Quran. Quietly busy yourself with dhikr. Don't cause a commotion. Why do you have to behave in such a manner every single Ramadan? The Imams have to make this humble request time and time again. You know, we're adults, mature individuals, mature people. If you don't agree with something, and this is, as we mentioned, a debate that's been taking place for more than 1,000 years. There's certain ikhtilafat that exist inside the Muslim Ummah that we should be tolerant about them and understand them, that where they relate from, where they come from. Not that Ramadan becomes a month of ghibah, of backbiting, of slandering, speaking ill of another Muslim, harming another Muslim, argumenting, a shatam, wa jidal, year in, year out. That's what comes in our Ramadan, unfortunately. And this is a sign that ulama mentioned, showing that one's Ramadan, hate to use such harsh words, that their fasting has not been accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a symbol. When a person gets busy with other things. And likewise a warning to those people that we have inside the society, that only in Ramadan I will be a good Muslim. Whoever makes what's classified as a double intention, that when it comes to Ramadan, I will leave everything I'm doing inside my life. If I listen to music, take drugs, commit adultery, fornication, smoke, whatever I do inside my life. But in Ramadan, as I say, I will fix up and become a good Muslim. I'm not speaking about many of us that we will sin, will err, will make mistakes. That's all of us Muslims after Ramadan. In Ramadan, we're going to make mistakes. All of us will err, make mistakes. I'm talking about a person who specifically makes a double intention. Specifically says that only in this month of Ramadan, I'm going to be a good Muslim as soon as Ramadan is over. It's not even over, it's the night of Shawwal, the first of Shawwal that we find, go back to their normal life. You know what fuqaha have mentioned about such a person? These 29 days, these 30 days that they're going to fast, فَصِيَامُهُ بَاطِلٌ. Their fasting has been invalidated. We've got 2 weeks to go to Ramadan, and may Allah forbid, if somebody has that intention, then they can rectify that intention. They can prepare themselves that I'm going to make sure that I try my best inside Ramadan and take these 29, 30 days. That's why even psychologists, they say that it takes about 20, 21 days for a person to break a bad habit. That's what they say. So we have 29, 30 days to break bad habits, to make it regular practice in our lives, to leave all these bad practices. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitate that for all of us. وَقُولُوا قَوْلِ هَذَا وَاسْتَغْفِرُ لِي وَلَكُمْ وَلِجَمِيعِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ فَاسْتَغْفِرُوا إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. As we mentioned, that all of these are opportunities for us to come close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. الصلاة إلى الصلاة والجمعة إلى الجمعة ورمضان إلى رمضان كفارات لما بينهن ما اجتنبت الكبائر أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. One prayer to another prayer, one Jumu'ah to another Jumu'ah, one Ramadan to another Ramadan is an expiation of sins, of the minor sins, whatever occurred between the two. Look at this encouragement, that for one prayer, you finish one prayer, maybe you speak to someone, look at something incorrect, say, do something, you perform wudu, it washes away your minor sins, come there and another prayer. Bring you toward the call of goodness. One Jum'ah, the admonition, the reminder, the impact of the admonition. That's how ulama have described this hadith. The impact of the admonition, the maw'idah, the admonition, Yawm al-Jum'ah. It takes you all the way to Thursday night. And the next day is Yawm al-Jum'ah. So your iman is revitalized once again. And the impact of Ramadan. That the 29, 30 days of fasting in Ramadan, the impact lasts all the way until this month of Shawwal. So as we begin to wither away, a few weeks left, Ramadan enters, Iman is revitalized once again. That should be the impact of Ramadan. As we find that the companions or the ulama before used to make this dua, Allahumma ballighna Ramadan, let us come to the month of Ramadan. Because we can see that those of us who are not there from previous Ramadan, loved ones, family members who are not there, nobody knows if they're going to come to another Ramadan. We shouldn't take it for granted. As we began with living life to the fullest of thinking that I'll make it there again, we don't know. It could be the final Ramadan of any one of us. So we need to prepare ourselves with making that right intention about this build up towards the month of Ramadan. And as we find out, some of us, how do we meet the month of Ramadan? Man yastaqbilu bid-dajr. Some of us, we meet Ramadan with hatred. Oh, it's Ramadan again. Ramadan again now. Now I have to flow with the flow of the people to be with them. There's some people who meet Ramadan with excessive traveling. Yes, traveling is allowed inside Ramadan. But see, this are many things we don't seem to understand what's taking place in the world. It's called tala'ub bil-sharia. It's called playing with the sharia. That's what's taking place in the world, in simple terms. We play with the sharia. But if we read through the Quran, we understand how deep the Quran is. أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْدِ الْكِتَابِ تَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْدِ. Do you believe in part of the book and reject part of the book? The whole Quran begins with speaking about these people, their treachery, their deception. The Quran begins by speaking about 4 ayat about the believers. Then the next 2 or 3 ayat about the disbelievers. Then the following page or so, 12 or so ayat, that Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi wrote a whole risala of sifatul munafiqeen, about characteristics about the hypocrites. Why does the Quran begin with the first 12 or so ayat speaking about the hypocrites? Because the Quran is trying to instill with us that we're going to follow the same traits, characteristics, those people that came before us. We're going to try to find some way of we're thinking we can deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. في قلوب مرض فزادهم الله مرضا يخادعون الله والذين آمنوا وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم وما يشعرون. They try to trick Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and those who believe, but they only trick their own selves, so they can't even perceive it, that they're lost individuals. That's what the Quran should be, the message of the Quran, that we read the Quran to change ourselves, to become better individuals inside our lives. And thus we find that maybe the reason this quickly could be, why do we face such problems? Because maybe the heart is attached to shahwa, towards desires. Excessive love of this world, excessive, as we began with, of this world, what does it create? It makes it thaqeel. Ibadah becomes hard. It becomes hard for the person to get up early morning for Salatul Fajr, especially coming to the summer days, 3 o'clock in the morning. It becomes difficult for the person who doesn't have that iman. But when a person has that iman, it becomes something light. وَإِنَّا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. Seek aid and assistance via the prayer. Indeed, it's going to be something easy, or it's going to be something difficult, except for the khashi'un, those people who are submissive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the tawfiq and ability, that we've got 2 weeks to go to Ramadan to prepare ourselves. Whatever it may be, make a schedule, make a plan, make it mentally inside your mind. This is what I want to do. I want to achieve this. Read the whole Quran in this blessed month of Ramadan. Juz a day. Read a juz every single day. You'll complete it by the end of Ramadan. Listen to the Imam. You'll complete another reading of listening to the Quran. Listen to it on the way to work. Listen to 1 juz on your way to work. On these modern forms of the technology that we find, platforms that we find. Listen to 1 juz a day. You would have completed at aqal 3 Qurans. At least 3 Qurans. And then try your best to read a basic tafsir of the Quran, whether it be Imam Jalalain tafsir that we find, or Imam Sa'di's tafsir, or Abu Bakr Jazai's tafsir in 3 volumes, Aysr al-Tafasir. Read some tafsir or tafsir al-Muyassar to understand, what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying to me? What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling me to do inside our life? Because the Quran is the key of everything. People speak about all these sciences. All these sciences are based upon what? The book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The prime goal of Aqeedah that we study, where is it primarily extracted from? It's the Quran. The more deeper, profound the person has a use of the language of the Quran, the understanding of the language of the Quran, the more rasikh he becomes inside his belief and his conviction, as we began with inside the last day. Inna Allah wa malaikatu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. Rabbana zalamna anfusana wa illam taghfir lana wa tarhamna lanakunanna minal khasirin. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين قوموا لصلاتكم يرحمكم الله